Well, good day. It is the 10th of May already, 2021. This is going to be a very short video. Got a number of requests about people interested in the Marshal Service. Specifically, the question is, are they hiring under Schedule B? And B, what the heck is Schedule B? What are the different schedules? So that's the intent of this video. Number one, to explain the different schedules. And number two, explain, which agencies are hiring under accepted service. So to make a long story short, originally all the civil service jobs in the federal government were patronage jobs. That meant the president could hire or fire at will. And at every new administration, they would have people who would come out, and his supporters, the new president's supporters, would come in. And where this turned tragic, well, number one, the government got bigger and bigger, and the president, didn't have time to worry about who's the postmaster in Elmhurst, Illinois. Okay, but he had to. That was part of his job. But presidents would have people coming in all the time looking for jobs. And President James Garfield, who was elected in 1880, had a job seeker, a man named Charles Guiteau, who was a mentally ill individual by any stretch of the imagination, who had campaigned for Garfield, felt that he had qualified for a high position in the federal government. And in those days, you could just walk in and talk to the president off the street. If he wasn't doing anything, they let you come in and talk to him. It's very different today. But at any rate, Guiteau did not get his job. He got ticked off, and when President Garfield was getting on a train to go out of town, Guiteau shot him. So there you go. And President Garfield eventually died. Guiteau was hanged for murder. But what Congress did do is they passed a Civil Service Reform Act. And in that, they created the Civil Service Commission and placed nearly all federal jobs into what is referred to as competitive service. Now, what this meant, long story short, you took an exam. If you wanted to work in the post office, well, you took an exam. Your name is then released by the Civil Service Commission on a list based on how well you did on the test. And it goes to the agency, and they decide whether or not to hire you. But pretty much they have to hire you if you're on the list. Okay, they had to have a reason not to do so. Okay. Now, it's obvious that certain jobs can never really be on a list. If you're a physician in the public health system, I can't sit and take the test for the public health system as a physician because I don't know anything about medicine. Maybe I'd do well on the test, but I'd end up malpractice, right? Or attorneys, assistant U.S. attorneys or DOJ attorneys, they needed special credentials. So a new system, accepted service, was created. And this was created early on. The first law enforcement agency, federal, to sign on to accepted service was, you guessed it, the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover during the Depression. And he felt that FBI agents should not be taking civil service tests, that he wanted to hire everyone. They had to have a college degree. Many of them had to have law or accounting, and he wanted to personally screen all of the applicants, and he did. So the FBI became accepted service, and the reason for this was national security, that they had high security clearances, and that the usual civil service test-taking procedure didn't fit for the FBI. Now, as time went on, more and more agencies wanted accepted service because you don't have to go through the Civil Service Commission. In 1978, the Civil Service Commission became the Office of Personnel Management. More and more agencies went into accepted service. DEA in 1981 went into accepted service because they were going to merge with the FBI. So it was no longer a test that you took to get in the DEA. You submitted your credentials directly to the agency. They decided whether to hire you or not. From the time of its inception, the CIA was accepted service. The Foreign Service did their own hiring. More and more agencies wanted to be accepted service. The Secret Service became accepted service because not anybody who takes a test can protect the president. So you see where this is going. More and more agencies wanted control of their own hiring, independent of Office of Personnel Management. Nowadays, the tests that you used to take back in the day, and back in the day, deputy marshals would take a deputy marshal test. Okay, the tests are all gone, that I know of anyway. Now you submit your credentials on usajobs.gov. You submit a resume, and OPM has a computer program that scans your resume, determines whether you're qualified, and if you are in the competitive service. So there's two main hiring authorities. There's competitive service and there's accepted service. Competitive service, your application is screened by OPM, and then it releases a list of eligibles to the hiring agency, and all jobs in competitive service are advertised on usajobs.gov. Accepted service, the agency itself does all of the screening and the hiring. The whole process is done by the agency, although they may advertise on usajobs.gov. The FBI hires on usajobs.gov. It advertises, but OPM has nothing to do with the screening of potential FBI agents. So does the Secret Service. All of those are accepted service. Now, how will you know whether the job you want is competitive or accepted? You have to look at the vacancy announcement on USA Jobs. So accepted service is for jobs that now they claim in the intelligence community that require high security clearance and have aspects of the job that don't fit the usual Office of Personnel Management personnel criteria. Now, can you transfer from a competitive service job to another competitive service job? Yes. But here's something that you do need to know. If you're in an accepted service job, such as the DEA, it's very difficult to transfer to competitive service. So once you're in an accepted service position, you're pretty much stuck there. And I'm going to attach an article which will tell you more than you ever wanted to know by a man who worked in competitive service. He's a doctor, a PhD, and then he went to the FBI, not as an agent, but all of FBI is accepted service. And he couldn't get out of the FBI because he wasn't qualified, because they would only take applicants from other competitive service federal jobs. So it can be very confusing, for sure. And there are way too many agencies, in my opinion, claiming accepted service. Okay, so Schedule A, B, and C. What is that? How does that fit in? Those are separate laws that also have to be considered besides competitive and accepted service. Schedule A deals with people with disabilities. It gives individuals with disabilities the opportunity to be hired irrespective of competition. So they're not in the ordinary competitive process because the government wants to help people with disabilities. Okay. Schedule B is direct hiring authority by the agency. So accepted service appointments are Schedule B appointments, but also competitive service agencies like the Marshals, if they say we need expedited hiring, or the Border Patrol says we need expedited hiring, they can do Schedule B hiring, which means they don't go through OPM. So it's an expedited hiring process done by the agency itself. Schedule C is for political appointments. The president's friends who get appointed to jobs, and they appoint their friends, and there's thousands of them, about 9 or 10,000, and they go at the end of the president's term. The United States Marshal, let's say, for the District of Illinois, Northern District of Illinois, he is a presidential, or she is a presidential appointee, and they got to go when a president leaves. They have to put in their resignation. The U.S. Attorney is a Schedule C. The U.S., not the assistants, but because they're appointed by the president. Okay, and then there's a lot of others, like the administrator of DEA, again, and the deputy administrator, presidential appointees. When the president leaves, they put in their resignation, and the transition team either accepts or rejects their resignation. So hopefully that's clearer than mud. Now, does the U.S. Marshals, are they hiring under Schedule B authority? It appears that they are, but if you want a job under the Marshals, they will only accept applications according to their website during periods of time, open periods, in other words, that are advertised on usajobs.gov. Okay? So if you are interested in the Marshals, call up one of the recruiters, ask them, what do I have to do to get in on a Schedule B hiring authority? I've heard that you are accepting applications on that, and see what they tell you, and maybe they'll take you and maybe they won't. But I don't like this system. I wish they would do away with accepted service completely. So again, it's a long-winded speech, but it's a pretty complicated topic, actually. More complicated than it needs to be, but anything the government does, they tend to complicate it. So hopefully it's been useful. If it hasn't, I'm sorry. The next one will be much more interesting. I promise you. Thank you.